A very good evening to you all, and a warm welcome to this edition of the Hot Seat here on 933 KFM. My name is Judith, a team sitting in for Patrick Kamara. It's exactly 7 o'clock, and for the next 1 hour, we shall be on the Hot Seat looking at Uganda's tax justice system and looking at how it impacts the business community. Of course, as you're all aware, or you may not be, a number of tax amendment bills for 2025 are set to take effect on the 1st of July, 2025. And this include the Income Tax Amendment Bill, the Value Added Tax Amendment Bill, the Excise Duty Amendment Bill, Stamp Duty Amendment Bill, and the Tax Procedures Code Amendment Bill. We shall be dissecting some of the salient issues therein. But just very quickly, I'll introduce my guests. Some are actually not yet here, but we shall be having Mr. Simon Kaheru, who is the chairperson of the East Africa Business Council Uganda chapter, joining us on the phone, while Mr. Peter Chibirango, who is the chairman, Chikubo Entrepreneurs Initiative, and Eric Serugo, the general secretary, Chikubo Entrepreneurs Initiative, will also be joining us a little later. I don't know if Simon is already on. Pardon me, I have a very, very bad cough.
Hi,
good morning. Good evening, Simon.
Good evening.
I have a terrible cough, so you'll just have to pardon me when I fire some serious rockets later on. How is your day so far?
It's been good, very uplifting, good weather, good thoughts, good feelings, and a few irritations and annoyances as usual, but this is life.
Okay, thank you very much.
I hope your cough clears and the people in studio don't pick up your infection.
No, actually, I'm no longer infectious. I was a week or so ago. I'm now out of the infectious stage. So everyone is quite safe, yes. So we want to scrutinize some of these tax issues. And of course, I would like you to weigh in on this. As someone who sits at and interfaces a lot with business people within the region. Of course, we know the country tabled a number of tax amendment bills this year. There are lots of proposals, including significant reforms across various tax areas. Government says these amendments are to boost government revenue, and some of the changes include the 3-year exemption for new businesses, expanding anti-tax avoidance measures, new taxes coming on board like the infrastructure levy and import declaration fee. When we are to look at the Income Tax Amendment Bill, for instance, it expands the list of exempt income under the Income Tax Act. It also amends the definition of reorganization under the rollover relief regime. It alters the digital service tax regime and extends the list of listed institutions. There are just so many. Simon, tax is quite a technical thing. And for lay people, numbers are quite burdensome sometimes. But I'd like you to just break down for us what broadly the impact of these amendments. Are they good for business? Are they not so good for business? And what's the way forward?
Broadly,
yes.
At the end of the day, when the government presents their proposals, of course they tailor them and present them in a way that says this is good for business, because even if the focus is, for instance, to build infrastructure or to go with the theme of what the government is aiming for in this year's budget framework, which is monetization to agriculture, blah, 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 blah. It all is good for business, but good for what segment of business and during what period of time? That's where the question is. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that other two of the guests will be joining us this evening, who I believe will be speaking from that trade point of view, traders' point of view, retail trade, which sometimes is not the same. They sometimes have a different perspective from, for instance, manufacturers, local manufacturers. Local manufacturers who have a business interest within the country might have a different interest from local manufacturers whose main market is regional or continent-wide. So when the government presents these proposals, we always ask, and we're good in East Africa these days, or in these last 3 years, we always ask that consultation is conducted widely amongst all these different stakeholder groups, so that whatever is put on the table and considered by Parliament includes all these different perspectives. Mm-hmm. In this year's budget cycle, the public engagement, we've had interesting discussions with the Parliament, Parliamentary Committee on Finance, and we've not really knocked heads, to be quite honest. But the presentation by the Private Sector Foundation of Uganda, the Uganda Manufacturers Association, East African Business Council, the American Chamber of Commerce, we saw a synchronized conversation that applauded some of what the government put on the table, and raised concerns where these concerns mattered for local business, non-trade related, non-direct trade retail, because we've all begun to fully understand that we need to manufacture more within the country in order to create employment, jobs, and to create actual real wealth that will, roll on down the generations. I actually did not seek a seat in Parliament, but the gentleman coming will tell us, even though I do know that their views were received through the PSFU process. There are certain entries this year that pleased everybody. For instance, giving incentives to startups. This, of course, we all applauded. We said this would be great because a lot of the tax incentives that we've seen over the last 10-15 years have been for
foreigners,
big investors. No.
Okay.
We shouldn't say foreigners, say big investors.
Okay.
And those big investors have tended to be foreign registered companies, which is good. We want that, right? Because we bring in money from outside to make money here that creates jobs here. That's how the wealth of nations is created, as the president always likes to tell us. But the bands that qualified for those incentives were out of scope for many ordinary Ugandans, right? You had tax incentives, for instance, at some point for businesses that were investing in excess of, at one point we were talking about, I think it was $30 million, which happens, but you and I, for instance, don't even get into that conversation. And that's why when you say that numbers are burdensome for some people, it's just some numbers that are out of reach. Now, today with this, for instance, the incentive put on the table for startups, small startups, to be exempt from income tax for a period. That's very good, except that we now need these small startups to understand what this incentive, what this exemption means. An exemption from income tax, for instance, is not an exemption from the taxes you need to pay today to be operational. Right?
Yeah.
You got to run the business, and the idea here is to incentivize people to formalize their business operations, so that all these different small enterprises that we keep on hearing and talking about, and that Uganda gets voted for, and we get ranked as the world's most entrepreneurial country, become formal businesses, however small they might be, but formal businesses that keep records, keep paying the taxes they're supposed to pay, keep paying people the wages they're supposed to earn, keep reinvesting, and at the end of year one, aim for profit so that they can top up that income tax. Year two, same thing. Year three, the same. And for that proposal, one of the things that we asked the government was to go longer than 3 years, because a 3-year period may seem good, they seem attractive for some, but if you want these people to formalize, give them a much longer period of exemption, because the benefit that we'll get from them formalizing will be much, much greater. And as we always say here on this program, it has to be linked to the other initiatives that the government is running, including, for instance, emphasizing more vocational education, creating incubation hubs, and so on and so forth for these small startups to come up. Right? There was a suggestion, and I think you just mentioned now the digital services taxes. Yes. Yeah. Yes, you did mention that, and you said we now when digital services taxes were first introduced, it was confusing for everyone. For many of us, we actually thought the government was dealing with digital tax stamps, which is the brain of many of our the existence of many manufacturers. But we realized very quickly that this applied to a different category of taxpayer that's not even based here in Uganda, right? And so we all said, yes, please go ahead and tax them, provided those revenues are not going to hamper the business activities of the people who rely on those service providers to do their businesses. And we're still very keen interested in that happening, because like we just said, the more money that comes into the country, the better for the economy overall. And for business, definitely. For business, that is fantastic. That is very, very good. We pointed out a few things that we felt were could be included, right? Were missing from the proposal that had been put on the table, which we had raised with the policy makers in different fields, different engagements, different platforms. Capping interest, an allowable expense for in some of the segments. That's, of course, for all the business people involved in their form of business. Again, these are some of the things that bother them, because the cost of money, cost of capital, cost of financing makes it hard to, one, start a business, but to expand. And the nature of our financial system here, we have a very, very high cost of capital. And again, that leads to what you alluded to earlier on foreigners. People in countries where capital is cheap would find it easier to come and compete with us here, making it difficult for Ugandan businesses to get going.
Okay.
And then the other one, exports. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Simon. We'll come back to you again. My other guests have actually managed to walk in. It's been quite a nightmare navigating the traffic to be here. Mr. Peter Chibirango, Chairman, Chikubo Entrepreneurs Initiative. Good evening.
Good evening,
Good moderator. To have you on the show. My name is Judith Atim.
Okay. Yes. I'm happy to be with you, Judith,
Thank
today.
You. Okay. And Mr. Eric Serugo, who is the General Secretary, Chikubo Entrepreneurs Initiative. Eric, good evening.
Good evening, Madam.
Pleasure to have you join us. Yes, we are being joined on the phone by Mr. Simon Kaheru, who is the chairperson, East African Business Council, Uganda chapter, and I was asking him to give me his perspective, what he thinks about this our tax justice system in light of the amendments that we're talking about, including the income tax, value-added tax, excise duty, stamp duty, tax procedures code amendment bill. And he thinks, well, this is a good thing for business, but I would like to hear what you think. What are your experiences? Because you're the guys doing import, you're the guys engaging in trade, in trade and commerce, and basically turning the wheels of Uganda's economy around. And I've also received the letter that you sent to the Parliamentary Committee on Finance recently, yes, in which you actually highlight a number of issues that you would like to have addressed, and would actually like to hear from you. Just very, very briefly, let me just hear from you, Peter. Just quickly, what are your reactions to these amendments, and which one do you think is more pressing for you people, but also the good ones that you think are actually positive for us? You could also talk about that.
Yeah, now, thank you, Judith. Now, the issues about the IFRIs, the VAT, which is being proposed in Parliament. Now, last week, we decided to make a letter to Parliament, because after reading the newspaper that there was a proposed bill, a new bill of amendment bill, so we decided to react. The reason why we are acting, it is that when you read this amendment bill 2025-2026, there is a lot of negative things towards the traders downtown there. First, we have we are hustlers. So when we import goods from China, let me say China and Nairobi, we pay a lot of tax. You have stamp duty, you have importation duties. When you go to ULA, there's UNBS, PIVOC, we pay a lot of taxes, which means when you bring goods, for example, of 100 million, you end up paying around 25 to 30 millions.
In taxes?
Yeah, in taxes. So that you remain with 70 M in your capital. So the government needs you to go on after paying the 30%, you go on and pay 18% of those products. Because one time I faced the URA Commissioner General, Mr. Musingus, when we were in the State House, was the president. I asked him, how comes after paying all these taxes, I have to continue paying other taxes? Why? Then for him, it was like, it's not me, after importing goods and goods reaches at the shop. For him, he's saying, it's not me to pay the 18%. It is the customer, which is wrong. Because if I put taxes on my goods, it means the customer who would buy a dozen will buy a quarter, which affects both the buyer's demand and my supply. So when you go back to the bill itself, it is portraying like you need to, there's what they call double the tax due, which means, for example, the old tax bill of 2024-2025, it was showing like you pay if you make a mistake and don't pay the tax. For example, if you don't use VAT or e-freeze, if you don't use the system, you have to go on and you pay a penalty of 6 million. You could pay what they call 300 currency points, yes. That is 6 million, because each currency point equals to 20,000, which means that one we could handle. But remember, last year we had a strike against it. Now what they have done, it is more of bad, because now they have put in place the double the tax, which means if they are demanding you 10 million, you are supposed to double the 10 million and you pay 20 million. You understand? Which means we are not going to be that environment, the business environment to be affected a lot. And remember when we met the president he promised to come and meet us before he engages with the technicals. He was supposed to come back to us. We agree on a certain issues which favors both parties, the traders and the government. We know as traders we have to pay taxes, but let us don't make the cow before feeding it. And like we have nothing remaining if they go on and pass this bill.
Thank you. We'll come back to you. It's time for us to take a break, and then we'll return and continue with the conversation. Welcome back from the break. It's 22 minutes past 7 o'clock. My name is Judith Atim. This is the Hot Seat, and today we're discussing Uganda's tax justice system, and we're looking at how it impacts our business community. Simon Kaheru, the chairperson, East Africa Business Council Uganda chapter, is on the phone. In the studio, I have Mr. Peter Chibirango, the chairman, Chikubo Entrepreneurs Initiative, and Eric Serugo, the general secretary, Chikubo Entrepreneurs Initiative. Peter, we heard from you before we went to the break. Eric, let me just pick your thoughts very quickly about this tax amendment bills. Your colleague Chibirango says the provisions are going to actually suffocate you people in business. But are there other provisions that you think are actually good for the business community in any of these tax amendment bills that we're talking about?
Yeah, good evening everyone with listening from KFM. My name is Sergo Eric, the General Secretary at Chikubo Entrepreneurs Initiative. Anyway, this tax, the way I see this income tax amendment bill, I read through this act, memorandum, everywhere from page 1 up to page 7. Nowhere it's helping the traders anywhere. I'm just seeing double taxation, triple taxation. I don't know how traders are going to be in their businesses if we continue depending on these new taxes which are going to be empowered by the revenue and the tax authorities. So my point is like to give like submitting from what my chairman has said, Chibilango Peter. These taxes, they are just hiding the influence which we have been trying to beat all along since last year. They have just brought influence in a new phase. Because before it was 18%, but now the way I'm seeing it's like tripling.
But EFRIS is not a tax, we agree, right?
It's not a tax, it's among the VAT. It's just hiding from the VAT. There's a way they bring it.
If this is a system,
it is a system,
which
yes.
you are right to collect the taxes.
Exactly. Yes.
But if this itself, it means VAT, which is a tax of 18%.
18%.
Most of times, like if is a method of collecting tax, which is okay. But under IFRIS, when you go there, you can't be on IFRIS when you are not paying taxes. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So IFRIS, on the other hand, we have been trying to fight against it for the last 1 year. Since that system, it has been trying to disturb traders, especially with traders who have been doing with locally businesses, low earners. There's no way you can tell a trader who owns a shop of around 5 million to pay that 18%, because those people, they normally sell items which are low prices. Like a person who can sell an item of 5,000 shillings. Now, if you put a VAT on 5,000 shillings, that is... To enlighten on his point, the ULI is saying whoever makes 400 something a day in sales, you have to be on IFRIS. They don't matter about the profit. They matter about
how much you make.
How much you sell a day. Which means even if you are having 10,000 out of 420 or 400 or 450, you have to be registered on IFRIS. So even in this new tax bill, somewhere they're going to make it force-free. They come, they look into your shop, they say this one, according to the stock he has, supposed to be, qualifies to be on IFRIS. You see? Which means Ugandans are going to suffer most.
Eric, you're still continuing with your submission.
Yeah, on top of that, I'm just arguing, how can the government put this amendment bill without consulting the traders? That's what I wanted to find out, because normally when Parliament is amending any law, it has to be consultative. Exactly. And as stakeholders, were you not consulted? Was the business community not consulted in this? Nowhere we have seen any revenue personnel or anyone from the URA, Minister of Finance, coming down on board to consult with the traders, because we are the ones who are making the economy. If you don't consult traders, at least I should find out, like it's like a fair game, the authority to come down, to sit with the traders, to negotiate how can this tax help traders, at what value, at what limit, instead of them sitting to their office and they just bring any cost they want to emit on the traders.
But you're also members of CASITA, right?
We are members of CASITA.
So were your representatives not consulted as well? Or you're not sure?
Now, you know, the issues of traders, you find out to a certain group of traders.
Simon, just hold on a little bit. Let's Peter finish what he's saying, and then we'll get to you shortly.
Yeah, we are also under CASITA, but now the problem comes in. If you see your neighbor not acting about the fire, for you, when you detect it, you have to go there and fight it. Now, if they did not react, that's why we came in and we want to rescue traders.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Stephen, I think we can get Simon on the phone now. Hello.
Hi, yes, Judith. I'm here. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening to you, Simon.
I hope you've been following what these two gentlemen have been submitting and what their arguments basically are. One of the issues I think they're raising is that these amendments were not consultative enough. They did not see any of the decision makers getting down to them and, getting their views or opinion on these amendments. And they also feel still uncomfortable with this IFRIS thing. They still have a pending conversation with the president, and they feel the amendments are just a tactical way of smuggling IFRIS and forcing them to actually pay these taxes.
Yes, so I heard what they said. And so for me, obviously, the conversation was around IFRIS. There are two things that I've picked up that I would call an opportunity. Even now, we know, that the parliamentary committee is now assessing all the submissions that were made, and they're finalizing their report. So there's definitely a missed opportunity for the immediate. But the big opportunity is for the future. One of the things that we do is we don't sit back and wait for the government to come and consult us. The tax cycle is publicized as soon as the budget is read. Actually, the way it works, and I'd be happy to interact more with the association, the Chikovo Traders Association initiative, you called it, to take you through this. As soon as the budget is read, the new cycle begins, because this is an annual process. And consultation is ongoing, non-stop. There are actually proposals that are sometimes passed. They are enacted into law. This is the new tax. But then in the process of that, of the law being enforced, there's a realization that it's impractical. And we've had very many cases of the government turning around and saying, we cannot implement this. We thought it was a good idea. It was put into law, but it simply cannot be implemented because it's not practical. One example is, for instance, the tax there was a tax levied on what they called plastics a couple of years ago. And it was put into the law books, but then within a very short time it was understood that the very definition of plastics included things that no one had ever envisioned. And the purpose for which the tax was introduced was not going to be met. So there was a change. So that engagement must be ongoing, and the consultation also must be ongoing, and it doesn't go one way. When you know you have an issue, you must get up and say, listen, government of Uganda, whether it's URA or the Ministry of Finance or Trade Policy, we have an issue we need to discuss. And one of the challenges that we face in Uganda across the board, not just with business community, the traders, is always going to the president first, or making the president Kamaladi. I'll tell you, if you wait for the president, as now many people are experiencing, you're going to wait a very long time. And government processes must continue, regardless of whether a meeting has happened or not, because these processes involve very many other things that are outside of the control of even the president himself. That's why a budget must be concluded and read by a certain point in time. It's constitutional. It cannot wait for the president's meetings to happen. That's why when you know that this is going to impact my business, you start the discussions early, you force consultations to happen, you present yourself for those consultations. Now, the other thing is linked to what I said earlier on. For instance, when I talked about us being quite happy and satisfied with the startup law, the proposal for startups to be given a waiver income tax. I was very clear that the purpose of that is to formalize these businesses. Uganda needs businesses that are formalized. And very many of the initiatives that we're going to see now and in the near future are going to be aimed at formalizing the way business operates in Uganda. That formalization enables very many things that we all know and we know that we need, including just planning for special services, planning for infrastructure, and planning for development in a way that brings in even additional investments, positions us to market outside of Uganda. Remember, the general strategy of the economic strategy of this country is to increase exports. And that's why the retail traders will, for a very long time, feel, be frustrated and feel disadvantaged. Because, yes, the laws are going to continually be designed to discourage import for trade. But the same laws have got to encourage and create an environment that grows manufacture that enables trade. And so, for the gentlemen in the studio, what we are all going to have to work hard on is to create products here in Uganda that allow you to trade even better than when you import from China. If those same products that we are buying that are imported from China were available, made in Uganda, they would definitely be cheaper. The margins would be greater. If those products were even marketable across the region, then you have a bigger market to sell to. And that means more profits. That's the general thinking of the strategy that we're seeing the government going for. That, like I said earlier, manufacturers have their opinion, both local and international manufacturers, which is pretty different from the opinion and positioning of a retail trader.
Stephen is being impatient.
What looking for is a long term.
Saying I have to cut you. But Simon, let's take a break, then we return. We're going for a break. We'll come back and pick up from there. Welcome back from the break. It's 20 minutes to 8 o'clock. This is the Hot Seat this Tuesday, the 29th of April. My name is Judith Atim. I'm sitting in for Patrick Kamara as we discuss Uganda's tax justice system and how it impacts the business community. I have on the phone Mr. Simon Kaheru, Chairperson, East Africa Business Council, Uganda Chapter. In the studio, Mr. Peter Chibirango, Chairman, Chikubo Entrepreneurs Initiative, and Mr. Eric Serugo, the General Secretary, Chikubo Entrepreneurs Initiative. Gentlemen, before we went to the break, Simon had said something about you wanting to see the president all the time and how that is actually not feasible and sustainable. But I wanted to know, your mother ministry is the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives. What relationship do you have? How accessible are these offices when it comes to, and not just the Ministry of Trade, including the other agencies that you work hand in hand with? What relationship do you have? How easy is it for you people to access them and get the information that you need?
Thank you, Madam Atim. On a point of access with the Ministry of Trade and Finance, on our side, it's becoming hard for some reason. First of all, even if we get arguments from traders, there are points we try to write down, things concerning traders. Like last time we forwarded some documents to the Ministry of Finance, but up to now they have not yet replied to us what's going through. So it's their system is slow, which makes traders down to demand what our views, how far have you reached. For us as we leaders, we get slow communication from those ministries. That pushes us to see the president. They just sit into their offices, yet the thing, it has to be done then, and then 2 days, 3 days, you sit, then you negotiate with the traders' views. So it's a slow process with those ministries, which makes our work hard with the traders downtown.
And in addition to that, Mr. Simon, if all government ministries were functional, maybe we wouldn't be dying to see the president. But because most of times you go to URA, you need something, you don't get help. Like last time, before strike, before protest, we tried to see those people, but all those people are saying we don't have power. When you go to URA, when you get, for example, I had one of traders in Chikubo was penalized 120 million. Then she's a lady. She's called Madam Adija Nachimoneka. When she came to me, we went to URA with her. Then we tried to tell the concerned about the issue. All of them were saying, no, this one, if you want to reverse your penalty, URA doesn't have power. You need to go to Minister of Finance. Then the State Minister for Finance will go to Parliament. Then the Parliament gives you the tax waiver, which is not possible. You see, that's the reason why we always look for him. And last time when we had the strike, before the strike, all gates of Chikubo were being guarded by UPDF. Whoever buys something, even if 500, you had to show the receipt after paying IFRIS, after paying VAT. So when you met the president, he was like, no, I've given the directive, all the army must get out of Chikubo area. So that's the reason, Mr. Simon. Then another one, you have talked about the importation. Importation, now the government is focusing on exportation. Not everyone can export. For example, when you look around those who are exporting today, at first we are importers. After gathering some money, they venture into industries. They go to value addition, which you can't do by now. We are here, some of us, we would be somewhere, not in Chikubo, Tukui River, but you find out after university, you don't have a job. We are not supposed to be in Chikubo, but we are there for survival. We are not there because we need that area where it is a chaos, but we are there for surviving. Most of times we need to come on ground, we talk. These are national issues. Let the URA, let the finance and the parliament be friendly to wananchi. So I call upon all the concerned ministries. You come downtown, or you can let us have connection. We talk, we link. you need to find a day we talk.
Mm-hmm.
Then if we do that, we shall get the solution for everything.
Okay, thank you. Let me get back to Simon. Simon, I don't know if you're still with us.
Yes, I am.
Okay. You've followed what this gentleman was saying, why they actually want to see the president in most cases.
Yes, and I fully understand. And so the point that I'm making is it may be the reality that many ministries and departments are sleeping, they're not doing their job, they complain about this every day. But you do not wait for the president, no. And that's what I've said, I'm willing to sit down with you gentlemen and your organization. First of all, you are part of Casita. If you need, you're part of Casita, then even that process, the Casita people, they themselves have been involved in some of these consultations and should have been putting many of these views on the table. Okay? The government ministries, the laws, the way they're written right now, constrain even the president. The example that you've given, Mr. Sebo, I think you're the one who gave the example of that lady who was penalized. And then when you went to URL, you were kicked to, Ministry of Finance, That's the law. That's, unfortunately, that is the law. Those are the things I'm saying. When you have these cases and you realize that we cannot do business in this manner, we all have an opportunity to go to Parliament and say, the way it's written here does not work for us. But it can't be done using one or two people as an example, because by the time the law was written, it was written generally for the vast majority. It's looking at the macroeconomic situation. It's looking at the majority of people engaged in, whether it's business, trade, commerce, whatever you want to call it. That's why we have to go through this formalized process of engagement that looks at things from a much more wholesome point of view. And the fact of the matter is, it's not that everybody in the country is going to do value addition. No. But what I'm stating is that Uganda's approach, and you need to read the National Development Plans, 1, 2, 3, 4, and onwards. The approach is the only way we are going to achieve the development and growth that we've been talking about for the last 40 years plus is through value addition. How are we going to get that value addition underway? Increase production, increase investments, decrease imports, because the more you import, the less likely you are to produce within the country. If you don't produce within the country, you're not going to capture those markets that exist out there. When you read the news today, there's excitement all around, Donald Trump, the US and China, tariffs and fighting this, that, and the other. That's all part of this. The reason China is a powerhouse right now, an economic powerhouse, is because they decided to corner the manufacturing side of things. That has given them an impetus that makes them a superpower that everybody has to bend and kowtow to use the words of one of our friendly MPs. We are never going to be in that situation, yet we have this opportunity. Now, the thing is, we're not saying let trade by importation die. No. That's not the objective. And indeed, if that's the only business that a person can do, they must do that business, because we need traders anyway. Manufacturing cannot exist without trade. But the strategy of the government is to tilt the scale so that we have more manufacturing, which in itself will benefit traders. And like I said, right now, anything that's being imported from China, I run a personal policy of import substitution because I need to build my country. I need to have Ugandan products on the shelves in my pantry, in my wardrobe, so that my fellow Ugandans can be supported by the money that I make. Now, I do not buy fake Ugandan products or low-quality Ugandan products. No, I'll never do that because I still need to consume. That's why I also get involved in promoting Ugandan products that are of good quality, that make sense. That's what the government is trying to push for. That's what the government is trying to do. And we will keep on seeing, and that's why, gentlemen, what I'm saying is that we need to be steady. This is the strategy. We are going to see many more laws that are written to encourage local manufacture, local development. And these laws, unfortunately, for anyone who is stuck to trade via importation, they are going to disadvantage imported trade that relies on importation. It is a fact. Knowing that is very important. It means that you have to now begin, changing the strategy. Your business strategy. All of us have business strategy because we know where the country is going. This is the time where we say, okay, how do we actually get involved in value addition? How do we identify products? If I've created an excitement for a certain product P, how do I, gear myself so that I can supply that product made in Uganda? Thank you.
We just have a few minutes actually to go. So, gentlemen, just your very quick thoughts again. Maybe if you want to respond to any of the issues that Simon has raised. But also, as we conclude, I want us to see the way forward. Simon says you don't just sit back and wait for things to happen or for the president, go to the president all the time. It's not a sustainable way of actually engaging and moving forward. Peter.
Yeah. Now, when you look when you go back to like 5 years back, the trade trend, it is changing. Mm-hmm. Now, for example, we used to have the people coming from Congo, from Tanzania. They used to come and buy from Chikuba downtown. But these days, you import your things after getting a loan. You sit there, you have paid taxes to URA. URA is collecting every day. For you are there waiting for a buyer. Instead of asking a dozen, someone will ask one piece. So, you see, it is because now we are going down. Our economy is going down. So, which means we need to work together as a country. Well, let all stakeholders, we come together and we plan for better Uganda.
In addition to that, I could also urge the URA to make fair taxation policy, which I think it can balance all the sectors. Because I have a problem with the
But URA collects taxes. It's Parliament that actually passes the laws and the policies.
It passes laws. But actually, my question is, petroleum stations, like petroleum sector, for them they don't pay VAT. I don't know why. Actually, in this act, nowhere it shows those petroleum sectors paying VAT. Yet every day we put our vehicles and if we fuel them, they don't issue any receipt. Yet they want me, who works with the small business, to work on VAT.
The tax is computed on the money that you pay for the fuel.
No. What he's saying, the tax is segregative. Mm-hmm. For example, these people in petroleum industry, they don't pay taxes for VAT. For ordinary Ugandan who is running a shop of 50 million is paying VAT. Mm-hmm. But someone running a billion business, they don't pay VAT, which means these people, and when you see these people running those businesses, we see them, they know each other. And when they're planning the new things of economics, they don't put in consideration.
That's interesting. Simon, I don't know if you have any response for these two gentlemen regarding that.
Yeah, I've made the offer that, gentlemen, we need to sit down and work together on these approaches, using all the right information and at the right platforms, because it will be much easier to achieve the objectives, if there is clarity in the room and if you have the right audience. Because I'll tell you, when you make the wrong arguments, believe you me, they will just go under the water and policies will continue to be passed that will be harmful to you. Yet you have a point in some instances, but it will be lost in the translation and understanding.
Well, thank you. We just have, I think, 2 minutes to go. Just each of you, just 1 minute each to wind up. To Simon. Okay, Simon. Hello?
Yeah.
Just wind up, and then I give the mic to these two gentlemen. And just your parting shots very quickly, please. Okay,
my parting shot, first of all, thanks for having me as always, and it's good to make new friends in the business community, business sector of Uganda. And I look forward to engaging with you guys a bit more. And for all Ugandans out there, again, I must stress, the budget cycle is not a one-off come and go. It is non-stop, it is continuous, and we really need to push for formalization, because this economy is not going to go anywhere if we don't quickly formalize and professionalize. And the other countries around us that we're in competition with are doing so at a very, very fast rate. So the sooner we get our act together, the better.
Thank you very much, Simon. And Eric, then I get to Peter.
Thank you, Simon, for that good information you are giving to the viewers. And my final words is like to call upon all the stakeholders to get to know their job, especially the Minister of Finance. At least try to engage traders downtown, look for their problems, and at least sit together to find a solution. That will be good for our business societies.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter.
So to all traders down there who is listening to me, don't just sit there at your business. You always do something to make your country a better one. We are doing this because we love our country. So that is my message. Good evening, listener.
Thank you very much. This is the Hot Seat. My name is Judith Hatim. I've been sitting in for Patrick Kamara. The Hot Seat comes to an end. We've been talking about Uganda's tax justice system and how it impacts the business community. Thank you very much, my guests, Mr. Simon Kaheru, Chairperson, East Africa Business Council Uganda Chapter, Mr. Peter Chibirango, Chairman, Chikubo Entrepreneurs Initiative, and Mr. Eric Serugo, the General Secretary, Chikubo Entrepreneurs Initiative. The Hot Seat returns tomorrow. Until then, have yourselves